Welcome to episode 687 of Salsidoparanormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing true paranormal stories on the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salsidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or accounts of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live recording streams on Discord, or if you listen to the podcast or YouTube feeds, or on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of my show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Michael Strange and Troubled Minds Radio comes on. And as always, I want to thank Michael Strange for having me on the network and putting my shows up there. If you'd like to support my show, you can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can find books I've written over on Amazon, paranormal fiction and nonfiction, including my most recent release, Salsido Paranormal Experiences. You can sign up for the Patreon page and get extra episodes whenever possible. And or you can just make one-time donations through PayPal. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows, from equipment to research materials to travel expenses in some cases. And I believe that takes care of everything, so we can get right to the true stories here. So let me get back to the document. And again, thank you all, as always, for listening in, however you do that. All right. I lost my spot. There we go. Okay. This one says, I was at a sports practice around 8 p.m., and it was dark outside. The field where the practice took place is in a remote area. There was absolutely no wind or breeze, which felt unusual. During one of the drills, I heard sounds resembling trees being ripped out of the ground and giant branches falling. Due to the darkness, I couldn't see the source of the noise. The sounds made it seem like something large was walking through the woods, though there was there was no clear reason for it. The incident also spooked the coaches for a few minutes, and that's where that one ends. So that is that sounds like some kind of a cryptid, possibly. Especially if they couldn't see anything. It makes me wonder, was it invisible or was it some kind of a shadow figure itself? I've heard accounts of there being sort of shadows that also seem to be as large as, let's say, like a Bigfoot, that seem to make all kinds of noise. And I've heard the opposite, where they're completely silent. So I don't know. I really wonder. It sounds like there was also weird kind of lack of sound around the area, other than the sounds that were writing the writer there and the people that were with them, or that they were with. So I don't know what that was. It's really it stands out to me because it's so vague, and yet it's obviously people there were freaked out by it. So what was going on there? Were they freaked out? Was there some kind of, I've heard of basically some kind of a psychic emanation, or the idea of different types of sound, like infrasound or sound waves, being directed at people to cause different reactions in them. I don't know, but that one just stood out because it's not like there were just really vague noises or quiet noises that could have been anything. that the people there could have mistaken or sort of exaggerated them to think it was something major. It sounds like there was possibly at least the sounds of something large moving through the area, and yet no one saw anything. So that one is wild, and I find the ones where people don't see anything almost more amazing in a way than the ones where people do see something. Maybe not more, but just really close to that, because then what is happening there? Why don't they see anything? So those kinds of accounts are always amazing to me. But yeah, so let me see here. That was a quick one, but still, I thought it was a just raises all kinds of questions there. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, I have been stationed at a military base in New York State for nearly 6 years and live in a military barracks that have been around for decades. This never used to happen in the past, but after starting treatment with behavioral health, I was prescribed sleeping medication. Once the medication regimen began, my closet door started opening during the night. I always make sure that the closet door is completely latched and secured before going to bed, making it impossible to open even if the door handle is turned. Despite this precaution, the closet door opens almost every day, including weekends when I don't take the medicine or medication. And that's where that one ends. So I think it's important to point out there that this started when they were sleeping better, possibly, but then it continued even after they weren't taking the medicine, at times when they weren't taking any medicine. So I wonder what the connection there is. That to me is a wild one. In that maybe someone could write it off, and then someone could write it off if it was just the medicine, possibly, I guess. But when they're not even taking it, and this door is still opening during those times, and they're not even taking this medicine, then to me that says that's not. I don't know how that would cause one thing would cause the other to begin with, but yeah, that's a wild one. I wonder if now I do wonder if maybe when they were sleeping differently or better, uh, did they come into contact, whether aware of it or not, with some other consciousness, some other being, or some other energy that was sort of brought forward or brought activated or brought out somehow, that then started affecting the quarters in the form of opening that door, and whether whether the person was asleep or not. It just, once that contact possibly happened, is that what allowed for the door to be open like that every day? And so I don't know, but that's the only thing I can think of with that. So, and that's not really an answer. That's just a possibility, I guess. So, but yeah, hello everyone there in chat. Thank you all for being here. And yes, happy Friday as we're recording this. And yeah, so let me move on to the next one here. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes I find some of these and they're really fairly short, and you'll get a few of them in a row like that. And other times they're quite a bit longer. So, and I don't even include some of the extremely long ones because I like to have several stories, features several true stories per show. But anyway, this one says, I had a vivid and real feeling dream where a past love of mine was holding me, bringing a, there's a typo there, holding me, bringing a sense of warmth and calm. When I woke up, the dream left me breathless as to how genuine it felt. Wow, I can't talk today. But I did not dwell on it much at the time. The dream filled me with deep warmth and happiness. A few weeks later, I learned that this person had died unexpectedly, which was devastating. Initially, I did not connect the dream to the person's passing, as there had been a gap of weeks. Later, I found out more details about his passing. He had died very close to when I had the dream. I feel strongly that the dream was a visitation from this person, either during or shortly after his passing. But I wonder if I just want it to be. Minutes after learning about the death, a bird flew into my window, which was unusual since my windows have grids. Do the dream and the bird incident count as signs of a true visitation? And that's where that one ends. And I don't ever have answers for anyone, but I will say that some people would say yes. Some people who have had experiences with those things, one or the other or both, might say yes. So I don't know. That's a lot to have happen there. Even just with the dream experience, where maybe it wasn't just a dream, that in and of itself, again, both of those things on their own are fairly common overall. Encounters with animals, having animals sort of come right up to people and or the buildings that they're in, and to have both those happen when it sounds like that didn't normally happen there, especially if the window had some kind of a, I guess, I don't know if they mean like a metal grid or a wooden grid pattern over the window, but yeah, it sounds like maybe there was something going on there. If with two things like that happening, that doesn't sound like there were common things to happen. So I don't know, but it seems like they could be onto something there with those experiences. So moving on to the next one here. This one says, I have been experiencing small, random, unexplained events for a while, such as my son's toys going off without anyone pressing the buttons. Recently, these incidents have increased in frequency and intensity. I bought my son a new toy phone, which worked normally only when buttons were pressed, until I brought it into the house, where it began going off on its own. On the same day, my bathroom fan turned on by itself. At work, I saw what appeared to be someone walking down a hallway, but no one was there. Later that day, I heard sounds of movement in a room at work, but when I looked, no one was there. That night, while lying in bed, I heard one of the bathroom cupboards open and close. There we go. I'm gonna skip the line. Even though the only other people in the house were my children, and they were asleep. I am confused as to why more frequent activity is happening now. And it seems that the activity is centered on me, as I am now experiencing things at both home and work. And that's where that one ends. The devices at home, the toys especially, I have heard that can sometimes be explained away by the the electromagnetic energy in a home from all the wires, from the house's own electrical systems, if they're not if they're old and getting, I don't know, worn out, if that's really the word, but they're not working the way they should, or if they've been if there's some kind of a leak somewhere of the energy. I've even heard accounts of people when they get to a certain point in the room, always at this one point when they're walking through a room, um, one of their kids' toys would go off, and to the point where they could test it. They could when they walked around the room, any other point, the toy would not go off. So these fields, even though you can't obviously see them, they seem to have they seem to go out for certain distances and then stop and have their, I mean, I guess you would say dimensions or whatever. So that could be explained away. The other things, the the fan in the bathroom turning on, the cupboard door opening and closing, and then of course the sightings and sounds in a completely different location. That I can't explain, not easily anyway. So I don't know if maybe I've heard of when you have one experience, sometimes that can open you up to being more sensitive to things and leading to more experiences. So I wouldn't automatically assume it's anything negative, but it could just be that this person is just, now they've sort of had one experience. It makes me wonder if the experiences with the devices in the house, the toys and everything, if they were, if there was something, some other consciousness manipulating those toys, or if here's a question: can a an event that is perceived as being paranormal when it's not, can that still lead to an opening? I guess maybe you could say it could, an opening of the mind up to that possibility of of things that are unexplainable, that are paranormal in a way. That word, again, words are hard and they only work so well, but that's what we have. If that could lead to a person becoming more sensitive and open to these things, which then leads to these things happening in some cases, which then leads to, again, sort of this circle, this almost like a feedback loop, or like a, and yeah. So I don't know, but that's where my mind goes with that. But I have no idea. But if it was just the devices going on and off at the house, then it'd be easier to possibly write that off as just stray energy from the house's own systems, in a sense. But with everything else going on, I don't know. So let's see here. We should be able to get to at least one more story here, true story here, before we end this episode. And also, just I mentioned this in the last episode. After this week of these 3 episodes I'm recording tonight, going out, I'm going to do my best to put out 2 episodes per week of true paranormal stories from the web, whenever possible. There may still be some weeks where, depending on how I'm feeling, I might not be able to. But the plan is always going to be to try to put out 2 episodes per week. That is coming back from quite a bit from the 6 that I was trying to do before. That was obviously just too much. But I'm hoping to still be able to do some extra episodes here and there of the book reviews, or the media reviews, book reviews, comic book reviews, TV, movies, all that stuff, and then the 100 places in the U.S. I'm not giving up on those completely. They're just going to be extra episodes that come out whenever I feel up to doing the research and recording those. So, but this is my favorite thing here, sharing the true stories. So this is what I want to focus on for the regular shows, at least until further notice, anyway. So, but anyway, moving on to one more here before we end this episode. This one says, this happened in 1977 when I was 6 years old, living in a small house and sharing my parents' bedroom. My bed was next to the window, and the room was dimly lit by streetlights through the open blinds. One night, I woke up to see a figure in the hallway. My parents kept the bedroom door open, allowing me to see into the hallway where the figure appeared. The figure was a tall woman in an old-fashioned gown, floating slightly above the floor on what appeared to be a cloud around her feet. She was monochromatic, a deep red or burgundy color in her dress, hair, and face. The woman floated into the bedroom, standing quietly in front of my parents' bed, observing them as they slept. After looking at my parents, the figure turned towards me, floated to the front of my bed, and leaned over, staring at me directly. Terrified, I pulled the blanket over my head and hid until I fell asleep. The following morning, when my mother planned to go to the corner store, I begged her not to go, but couldn't explain why. Nearly 30 years later, I finally told my mother about the experience. She then shared that the man who sold the house to my parents had mentioned that his wife had passed away there. The experience remains vivid in my mind even after almost 50 years. And that's where that one ends. I don't blame the at the time the child there, the writer now, for having been frightened by what they saw. But it does sound like possibly it was either the wife of the previous owner or someone that was there. And I always wonder when people when these apparitions do this, and they don't do anything else. They don't attack anyone. They don't try to make physical contact. They don't really do much except, of course, they're just there and they're visible. And then they sort of do move towards the people. Are they as confused as the people are who see them by the presence of these people that as far as they're concerned, may be in their own home? Or are they just wondering who's there and why, and just confused in general about things? So I don't know. It's something I always wonder about in these kinds of sightings, where that seems like, again, the writer said it in their own post there. They were being observed, their parents, and then they were being observed by this figure, and I don't blame them for being frightened, but at the same time, I wonder if they really needed to be, or if it doesn't seem like this figure, whoever it was, meant any harm. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsidoparanormal. Take care.